World War II was a global conflict that involved numerous countries across the world. The conflict began in 1939 when Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland. In the following years, Germany successfully conquered much of Europe, including countries like France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. However, Britain remained a primary target for Nazi Germany. Despite its strong air defenses, German bombers managed to breach the British airspace and launch deadly attacks on Buckingham Palace, the official residence of the British royal family. Germany continued its aerial assaults, causing massive destruction with numerous buildings, homes, and public infrastructure severely damaged. The people of Britain lived in constant panic and fear, spending much of their time seeking shelter in air raid shelters and often losing their loved ones to the bombings. The citizens, soldiers, officials, and the king fought to defend Britain against the Nazi attacks, making several individuals hailed as heroes during these challenging times, such as Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister who served from 1940 to 1945 and 1951 to 1955. Churchill was a respected figure and considered a hero by the British people and the general population of Western Europe. However, there was one individual who may have been overlooked in international discussions, someone who held significant importance comparable to Churchill for the British and European people during the difficult years of the war. This person was dubbed by Hitler as the most dangerous woman in Europe, and she was Queen Elizabeth, the wife of King George VI of England. Queen Elizabeth, also known as Queen Mother Elizabeth, was born on August 4, 1900, with the full name Elizabeth Angela Marguerite Bowes-Lyon. She was the wife of King George VI of England and the mother of Queen Elizabeth II. Elizabeth came from a noble family. Her father, Claude Bowes-Lyon, was the Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn, while her mother, Cecilia Cavendish Bentinck, came from an aristocratic family. As a member of the noble family, Elizabeth grew up in an environment filled with duties and responsibilities. On April 26, 1923, Elizabeth married Prince Albert, who later became King George VI in 1936 after his brother, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne. Elizabeth became the queen consort and received the official title of Queen Elizabeth when her husband ascended the throne. During World War II, Queen Elizabeth remained in England with her family despite many other European kings and queens fleeing their occupied countries. She and King George VI resided at Buckingham Palace during the war and experienced firsthand the impact of Germany's attacks on England. During World War II, Elizabeth was a loyal supporter of her husband, King George VI, who faced psychological difficulties and struggled with a stammer when speaking in public. Queen Elizabeth employed a speech instructor and language therapist named Lionel George Logue to help prepare her husband to become the leader needed by the people during the crisis. On September 8, 1940, a 50-kilogram bomb fell in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace. Fortunately, the bomb did not immediately detonate and was successfully dealt with by the security personnel. However, after 5 days, on September 13, 1940, while the King and Queen were enjoying their morning tea, they were startled by the sound of an explosion and the collapse that occurred on the eastern side of the palace. It turned out that German forces had dropped 5 bombs, which destroyed the palace gates, the chapel, and the surrounding area of the Queen Victoria Memorial, a symbol of the strength of the British Empire. Despite the shock of the incident, the King and Queen later visited the ruins. With a resolute demeanor and her characteristic speaking style, Elizabeth showed no fear and commented, "I'm glad we've been bombed. It makes me feel I can look the East End in the face." In addition to her behind-the-scenes role for her husband, Elizabeth also recognized her responsibility in maintaining the spirit of the British people. As an individual born in the Edwardian era, a long period in the 19th century, Elizabeth saw the royal family as a moral guide for society. Therefore, as a queen, she felt it important to strike a balance between being close to the people and having a majestic presence. Elizabeth meticulously maintained her public image. Various mass media sources have recorded how she always wore a smile and presented herself with elegance at every event. During the war, Elizabeth truly exemplified her qualities. She and her husband, King George VI, sought to avoid luxury amidst the suffering that befell their people. This stood in stark contrast to the behavior of King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, during that wartime period. During the air raids, she visited affected areas, including destroyed houses and orphanages that were targeted. Her visits provided encouragement and support to those affected, as well as moral boost to the entire British population. Queen Elizabeth also participated in war efforts by engaging in voluntary work. She joined the Women's Voluntary Service and learned to become an ambulance driver. During her service, she drove ambulances and transported victims of air raids to hospitals. Furthermore, King George VI and Elizabeth adhered to rationing regulations for food and fabric, which were implemented due to shortages in the country. In the documentary film A Century of Queen Mother 2021, historian Sandra Bowler mentioned that Elizabeth displayed remarkable creativity in choosing hats. In a time when fabric was scarce, Elizabeth complied with the restrictions and used hats as the only accessory to express herself. She specifically created adornments inspired by the war, such as wings with symbols of the Royal Air Force and imperial emblems. This act served as a way to uplift the spirits of the people during the war. During these challenging times, Queen Elizabeth, then known as Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, played a significant role in providing positive influence to King George VI and the British people. Her presence among the people, visits to affected areas, and involvement in voluntary work all provided inspiration and hope to the people of Britain. The civilian population stood united, with many participating in civil defense and war efforts against the Nazis. It is for these reasons that Hitler referred to Queen Elizabeth as the most dangerous woman in Europe. Hitler saw Elizabeth as a woman with great influence over the British people and their policies. He believed that King George VI was under her influence, and she had significant popularity among the public. However, the perception that Elizabeth had significant influence over King George VI is a misconception. In public, Elizabeth indeed appeared stronger, more vocal, expressive, and with clear opinions. However, this was also influenced by the psychological challenges faced by George VI. When interacting with those closest to him, George did not show signs of the panic disorder he experienced when facing the public. King George VI and his siblings received a strict upbringing from their parents, King George V and Queen Mary. As a result, the children of George VI's generation experienced various psychological or social disturbances. King Edward VIII, George VI's abdicating brother, had an obsessive tendency towards dominant women, and his other siblings also exhibited unusual psychological tendencies. In such challenging circumstances, Elizabeth provided strong emotional support to King George VI by creating a warm family atmosphere. Her relationship with their two daughters, Princess Elizabeth, later Queen Elizabeth II, and Princess Margaret, felt more like a friendship than a traditional mother-child bond, which was unusual for that time. Elizabeth's excellence and influence, both during and after the war, lay in the simple yet seemingly trivial actions that indirectly affirmed the irreplaceable role of the royal family in the life of the United Kingdom. She was the longest-serving member of the royal family. With inspiration and determination, she continued to fulfill her public duties without ever using the word retirement. Finally, on March 3, 2002, she left us forever.